It begins with the lantern, always the lantern. A cold handle pressed into your hand by someone whose face you didn't fully see, just the shape of a jaw moving in shadow lips, saying something too muffled to understand, like words spoken underwater, or remembered from a dream already beginning to dissolve. The iron loop squeaks in your fingers as you clutch it tighter, not from fear, but from a kind of deep-seated obligation. You have done this before, haven't you? You can't be sure, but the way your fingers curl around the soot-blackened metal feels too familiar to be new. The lantern's flame is weak, no bigger than a moth's fluttering wing. It casts an amber hue barely strong enough to reach your boots, let alone the prow of the ship far ahead. Still, they tell you to walk, always forward, never look back. You hear it in every creak of the hull, every whisper of salt wind brushing past your ear, though you don't remember anyone actually saying the words aloud. The deck stretches before you like a long, unspooling ribbon of dark wood, slick with sea mist and shivering from the distant rumble of thunder. You take a step, then another. The lantern wobbles in your grip as the ship rocks gently beneath your feet, not violently, not yet, but with the subtle instability of something ancient, pretending to be seaworthy. Your bare soles slide slightly, catching splinters through your worn socks. You should have replaced them weeks ago. Or was it centuries? You keep moving slow and careful, each footfall echoing in a way that suggests you are not walking across planks, but over the hollow belly of something that breathes beneath you. A trick of the acoustics, perhaps, or something older and less willing to be dismissed. You try not to look at the water. You've learned by now it shows you things, faces, hands, memories, none of which belong to you. Behind you, the rest of the crew continues their silent tasks. Silent not because they have been ordered to be, but because the ship no longer tolerates idle conversation. It makes the hull groan. The captain once tried to tell a joke, a real knee-slapper, you assume. The ship responded by sprouting barnacles from the inner walls of the captain's quarters that spelled out the punchline in reverse. No one laughed, but you have your job, and it's a simple one. Walk forward and light the prow. That is all. And yet somehow you've never completed it. You take step after step, night after night, but the front of the ship never grows closer. In fact, if anything, it seems to recede with each stride, like trying to walk toward the moon through a telescope. Tonight feels different, though. The air tastes heavier, full of brine and lightning. The kind of air that knows your name, even if you've forgotten it. You pause just briefly and glance down at the lantern. Its flame gutters, then rights itself. You exhale. Some say the Flying Dutchman was cursed during a storm off the Cape of Good Hope, when the captain challenged the heavens and swore he would round the cape, even if it took him until the end of time. Others whisper that it was never a real ship at all, but a story born from drowned dreams and sailors' regrets, solidified by belief and buoyed by despair. You've heard both tales. You've lived both tales. Or maybe you simply dreamed them while dozing beside coils of wet rope and half-emptied rum bottles. The truth, if it exists, is smeared like oil across the timbers of this ship. You can taste it in the air, you can smell it in your clothes, and you can feel it in the long silence between waves. Even the gulls avoid this place. The wind knows better than to whistle here. You pass a coil of rope on your left, thick and sea-stained, breathing out the scent of iron and algae. Once you saw it unravel itself in the dead of night and slither toward the forecastle like a blind thing hunting by memory. You told no one. Not because you were afraid they wouldn't believe you, but because you were afraid they would. The deck creaks again, but this time it doesn't sound like the usual groan of old wood. It sounds like a sigh, long and heavy, the kind that precedes a confession. You stop, turn your head slightly. Nothing. No one. Just the ever-stretching length of ship ahead and behind you. Fog swallowing the outline of the main mast. Your arm aches now from holding the lantern aloft, though you didn't realize you'd been doing it for so long. Your elbow trembles. The flame wavers. You lower it gently, just enough to see your feet again. Another step, and another. The pattern continues hypnotic like a lullaby that leads you further into waking sleep. That's the thing about this ship, it doesn't rock like normal ships. It sways like a heartbeat pulsing gently to lull your thoughts into forgetting what still matters. You try to remember something, anything before the ship. A smell, a name, a voice that once called to you with kindness. All you can summon is the sound of metal on wood, of waves slapping rhythmically against a hull that has forgotten its port of origin. There are no stars above, only swirling mist caught in perpetual dance with moonlight that never quite shines. Funny, isn't it, that a ship could wander the seas forever and never make landfall? That a girl could carry a lantern and never reach the place she's meant to light? You once joked to no one in particular that perhaps you're not real either. Maybe you are just the lantern's dream walking in search of a hand to hold. Somewhere far aft a bell rings, once low, mournful, like a memory being wrung out of the ship's bones. You do not turn around. No one ever turns around. That's the first rule. You don't remember who said it. Maybe it was you. Maybe the ship itself whispered it one night while the sails hung like wet paper clinging to rigging like a drowning man to driftwood. You pass the shattered remains of a figurehead, once carved like an angel, wings outstretched, eyes forward. Now the wings are rotted down to stumps, and her mouth is chipped open in a permanent scream. You think she tried to warn you once, long ago, before you realized that forward was a lie. Still you walk. That's the strange part. You always walk. Even when your legs ache, even when the deck loops back on itself like a Mobius strip made of salt and sorrow, you walk. The lantern flickers again. You cover it with your free hand, trying to shield it from a wind that doesn't actually blow. Sometimes when you're half asleep or fully mad, and how do you tell the difference? You swear the lantern speaks to you. Not in words, not exactly, but in warmth. When it burns bright, you feel less alone. When it dims, the shadows crawl closer. Tonight it's dimming, and for the first time it feels deliberate. You look ahead. The prow is there, still impossibly far, still unattainable. But for just one heartbeat it pulses with light, as if someone lit another lantern there waiting for yours to meet it halfway. You blink. It's gone. Or maybe it never was. Maybe the ship gave you that vision to keep you moving. Maybe it just wanted to see what hope looks like in your eyes. Somewhere above the sails, whisper. Not flap, not rustle, whisper. They say your name. Not the one you use now, not the one anyone else on board knows, but the one you were born with, the one someone sang to you long ago in a cradle that didn't rock like this. The lantern sputters, and this time it goes out, not slowly, not flickering. Just gone. No warning. No wind. No sound. One moment, there's light. The next, you are alone in blackness, thick enough to swallow thought. The kind of dark that has texture, taste, sound. It sounds like waiting. You do not scream. That was your first lesson here. The sea never answers. Instead, you stand still. Let the dark touch your skin. Let the chill wrap around your arms and nestle into your lungs. The darkness does not feel empty. It feels full, like a theater waiting for the first line to be spoken. Then somewhere in front of you, a light, dim, bluish, pulsing like a heartbeat. Not yours. You don't move toward the light right away. You wait because instinct tells you to, because the ship seems to demand it. Out here, nothing rushes. Everything stretches, folds, waits. That pale pulse, soft and blue like the light beneath a closed eyelid, throbs at a distance impossible to measure. It isn't where the prow should be. It floats instead slightly to the left of where the ship narrows. Suspended not on a deck, not from a mast, not hanging from a hook or a chain or a spar, but simply existing in the air like a firefly too exhausted to land. You lift your empty lantern, forgetting momentarily that it has gone out, and reflexively shield it with your hand, as if your gesture could coax it back to life. The flame does not return. It is not sleeping. It is gone. And so you lower it slowly, almost reverently, as if handing back something borrowed and broken. The metal handle scrapes against your palm, leaving behind the soft sting of rust and regret. Somewhere far behind you, a rope pulley turns with a long, reluctant creak. It might be the wind. It might be a crew member you'll never see. But the sound carries forward, echoing like the beginning of a song without melody. The kind of sound that begs for accompaniment. The ship is full of those half things, almost half-formed moments that tease a resolution they never quite deliver. You step again this time, without knowing why. It feels less like a decision and more like a continuation, as if your body had been moving long before your mind caught up. Your bare feet slip forward across damp wood that seems to sigh with each touch. The deck flexes slightly, not from weight, but from memory. You suspect this ship remembers every step taken on it, every boot and bare foot and hoof and claw and bone that ever scraped its planks. And you are just one more mark, one more rhythm added to the layers beneath. You move toward the blue light, slowly feeling its pulse in your own chest. It is not bright. It is not warm. But it is steady, and that is something. And on this ship, something is a rare and precious thing. As you walk, the fog shifts. It doesn't part, not quite, but it tilts, like it's watching. The mist on the Flying Dutchman does not obey the wind. It breathes, it leans, it listens. You once heard it laugh low, throaty, and cruel when a sailor muttered he didn't believe in ghosts. The next morning, that man was found in his hammock, eyes open, lungs full of seawater, though the hull had remained sealed tight. No one spoke of it again. But after that, everyone whispered their apologies to the fog before falling asleep. You whisper now too. Just a breath, just a hush, I'm still here. And the mist responds with silence so deep it feels like pressure. Your ears pop. The lantern swings. The light ahead does not move, but you do. And as you draw closer, the deck underfoot begins to change. It shouldn't, of course. This ship is wood from stern to bow, but now the planks seem less like planks and more like bone. Not white, not fossilized, no, something more uncanny than that. Pale wood that's been soaked in memory, drained of its grain, smoothed by countless footsteps of the lost. It hums. You feel it more than hear it. A low resonance, the kind that vibrates up your legs and into your teeth. The kind that suggests the ship is no longer sailing over the sea, but gliding along something older, something deeper than water. The blue light brightens only slightly, but enough for you to make out a shape. It's a lantern, like yours. Almost exactly like yours. But this one burns without oil. Its flame is liquid, undulating like a captive wave. No chain holds it. It hangs in midair, turning ever so slowly like it's considering you. And then you see her, not clearly, not all at once. Just a shape at first, then a shoulder, then a braid, then the unmistakable outline of your own self, Your size, your posture, your stance reflected in reverse, not mirrored. Mirrored would be easier to stomach. This is subtler. It's as if someone built a version of you from memory and dreams, then placed her here to stand beneath a light that refuses to burn out. She holds the blue lantern in both hands. You don't see her face. Her back is to you. But her presence presses into the air with the familiarity of your own heartbeat. You stop. You breathe. She doesn't move. Behind you, the ship makes a sound like distant weeping. Not loud, not theatrical, just soft, wet grief leaking from the planks. Maybe the ship remembers her too. You open your mouth to call out, but no sound comes. Instead, a memory arrives, uninvited and sharp. A dock, a rope slipping from your fingers, someone shouting your name as the tide pulled you away. Not here, not this ship. Another time, another life. The girl with the blue lantern remains still. You step closer, and the fog parts just enough to reveal the edge of the ship. And there, hanging over the starboard rail, is the figurehead. But it's not the one you remember from before. This one is whole, intact, carved from dark wood and etched with symbols that glow faintly in the mist. She is not screaming. She is singing. Her mouth is open, but no sound escapes. Yet your bones feel her song. The figurehead and the lantern girl do not acknowledge one another. You are the only common thread between them. And it occurs to you now, something ancient and aching, that this isn't a moment unfolding in time. It's a memory blooming in a place where time has drowned. The lantern in the girl's hands flickers. She turns, and you see her face. It's not yours, but it could have been. She is you if you had left the ship, if you had escaped, if you had remembered something worth running toward. Her eyes are alive in a way yours have not been in years. Her lips part as if to speak, but no sound comes. Instead, she holds the lantern out to you, a gesture of offering, or surrender, or warning. You reach forward. The lantern passes through your fingers like cold mist. It was never yours to take, only to see. The girl begins to fade. First her hands, then her shoulders, then the braid you never wore but remember dreaming of. Her lantern burns brighter for a moment, an eye blink, a flash, and then dies. Darkness rushes back in, and the deck beneath you groans with an old, bitter kind of disappointment. The ship does not like when choices remain unmade. It prefers clarity, obedience, closure. You have given it none. A sudden wind snaps the sails above, not wind from the sea, but from within, from the ship itself. It inhales, and the air you stand in becomes thick with salt and memory. You fall to your knees, not from weakness, from gravity. Emotional, spiritual, narrative gravity. Something in the center of the ship has shifted, and you have shifted with it. Below the deck, something stirs. A sound like a heartbeat, but not biological, mechanical perhaps, or mythological, like an old god trying to remember how to dream. You rise slowly, lantern still dark in your hand, and look ahead. The blue light is gone. The girl is gone. But in their absence, a new path appears narrow, twisting, lined with ropes and shadows and doors that shouldn't exist on a ship. You will walk it because you must. Because you are the lantern girl, even when the lantern goes out, especially then. There is no announcement when the door appears, no thunderclap, no scream of splintering wood, no sudden shift in the wind to draw your attention. It is simply there, positioned just ahead and slightly to the left of where you last saw the ghostly lantern girl vanish, nestled where no door should ever exist aboard a vessel. Not along the open deck like this, not in a place with no wall to support it. And yet it stands upright, sealed shut, framed in warped black timber, that smells faintly of brine and something far older. Something that has no business remembering your name. You approach with caution because of course you do. Everything on this ship deserves caution, even the air, especially the quiet. The door is not ornate, but it is unmistakably deliberate. Etched faintly into its surface are markings not quite letters, but something script adjacent. They curl and wind like seaweed in a tide pool, forming symbols that flicker just beyond the edge of comprehension. When you squint, they resemble maps. When you blink, they shift into faces. It takes effort not to stare too long. You've seen what happens when sailors on this ship become obsessed with symbols. One carved them into his arms, convinced they would open a portal to shore. All they opened was infection. Another painted them onto his bunk with fish oil and blood. That bunk now grows barnacles in the shape of teeth. You reach out, slowly, carefully, and place your hand on the door's surface. It's warm, not like wood baking in sunlight, but like skin that has just exhaled. You hesitate, then press harder. The door swings inward. What lies beyond is not a room. It is memory, not yours alone, but collective. An echo chamber of regrets too large for one mind to carry. The space beyond is vast, much larger than the ship should allow, its ceiling arched like a cathedral's ribcage. Its walls lined with hundreds of dim lanterns, each swinging gently though there is no wind. They hang at varying heights, and each contains a different flame. Red, blue, violet, white. Some barely flicker. Others blaze with a fury that casts shadows as tall as sails. You step inside. The deck vanishes beneath your feet, replaced by fog. Not just mist, not the kind that hides detail, but true, thick fog that swirls beneath each step, like it's alive, like it's trying to cushion your tread and hush your approach. The lanterns sway as you pass, as if acknowledging your presence or recoiling from it. You're not sure which. As you walk deeper into this impossible chamber, you begin to hear the voices. Soft, gentle, not whispering, not chanting, conversing. But none of them speak aloud. You feel them more than hear them, conversations being remembered rather than repeated. A child asking not to be left behind. A woman confessing her fear of storms. A man dying quietly, asking if his name will be remembered. All of it interwoven into a gentle hum that humbles even your heartbeat. You pause before a lantern shaped like a teardrop. Its flame is green, not neon, not garish, but the green of forest moss after rain of copper left too long at sea. You lean closer. Your name. It says your name, not in sound, in feeling. The moment you gaze into the flame, you remember something you forgot you'd lost, a lullaby. Hummed in a woman's voice, soft and aching. You never knew the words, only the tune, only the warmth of being held in that voice. You reach for the lantern hand, trembling, but it swings away gently, politely, as if to say, not yet. Behind you, another lantern brightens. You turn and the scene shifts again. This time you do not walk. The fog moves you. One moment you are standing. The next, you are gliding, your feet skimming the mist, your body light as breath. Around you, the lanterns fade into stars, and for a terrible, beautiful instant, you think the ship is gone. That you are floating in some other realm, unmoored, free. You let yourself believe it, just for a heartbeat. Then the ship exhales, the walls return, the fog settles, and you find yourself in a small room, no longer vast, no longer sacred. A cabin, perhaps. The kind you'd expect on a merchant ship or naval brig. Wooden desk, chair, porthole. Except the porthole looks out not onto sea or sky, but onto darkness. Pure and undiluted. The kind of dark that has gravity. On the desk lies a book, bound in leather, worn at the corners. The kind of book meant to be opened. You hesitate, then sit for the first time in what feels like centuries. The chair groans. The lantern you forgot you carried swings softly at your side. You open the book. It's not blank. It's not full. It's not even written in a language you know. But your eyes understand anyway. The symbols are strange, twisting vines and broken compass roses and sketches of eyes with too many lashes. But the meaning is they're stitched between lines, records of every step you've taken. Every night you've failed to light the prow. Every time the flame has died in your hand. And beneath it all, one recurring entry. She walks forward. She does not arrive. You close the book slowly. You understand now, at least in part. This isn't punishment. This isn't curse. It's story. You are a thread being pulled through time, not cut, not tied off, just pulled. You exist in repetition, ritual, rhythm, because someone must walk. Someone must hold the lantern, even if it no longer burns. You rise, and once again the scene has changed. You are back on deck, but not as you left it. The fog is gone. The stars are visible again, pinpricks of defiance against the void. The sails hang limp as if exhausted from dreaming. Ahead, the prow remains distant, but perhaps less so than before. Perhaps only a few hundred steps now instead of 1,000. The door is gone. You carry no lantern now, but your hands glow, not with flame, not with magic, but with light. Soft, golden, flickering like a memory trying not to fade. You do not understand it. You do not need to. Your steps feel steadier now, firmer. The ship rocks beneath you in time with your heartbeat, and the planks seem to welcome your tread. Somewhere deep below in the ship's hidden chambers, something ancient and watching shifts. Not in anger, not in hunger, but in recognition. You are not the first, you will not be the last, but tonight you walk, not toward the end, not toward escape, but toward the knowing that even if you never reach the prow, even if this loop continues forever, you have made it one step farther than before, and that on this ship is everything. The wind is beginning to change, not in the usual way one thinks of weather shifting. There's no sudden gust, no violent whip of cold against your face, no audible snap of sails adjusting their angle. This change is quieter, more intimate, and felt less by the body than by the bones. It begins deep in the ribcage, in that hollow where breath waits before it becomes speech. The wind does not blow. It listens. It tastes. It curls gently around your ankles like a cat, waiting for the right moment to speak. This, you realize, is not natural wind. It is the wind of a place that remembers. You walk forward. Each step now makes a distinct sound against the deck, a soft, hollow thud, like knocking on the lid of a coffin. And the strange thing is, it doesn't startle you. If anything, it comforts. Its rhythm, pattern, continuity. For so long, you've trudged across this ship's endless belly, feeling like a ghost in your own shoes. But now, for the first time, your steps leave an echo. Something is listening. Perhaps the ship itself. You pass the remnants of an old cannon station, one of many rusting relics that line the edge of the deck like forgotten teeth in a giant's jaw. The metal is mottled with corrosion, streaked in colors the sea isn't supposed to make, greens that shimmer too bright oranges like dried blood, and patches of violet that throb when seen from the corner of your eye. There are no cannonballs left, no powder barrels, but the scent of sulfur still lingers, stubborn as a wound. You pause to run your fingers along the cool iron, and for a brief moment your mind flashes not a memory, but a flash of something other. The cannon in its time did not fire at ships. It fired at something else. Something the sea gave form to out of spite or loneliness, and then set loose. You don't know the full story. But the moment your skin touches the cannon's edge, your pulse slows and your eyes blur, and you feel it just beneath the ship, something enormous stirring in the deep. Not as an enemy, but as a memory unfinished. You pull your hand away. The wind does not speak, but it folds gently around your back as if encouraging you to move on. You obey. To your right, a row of hammocks hangs from a beam, swaying ever so slightly despite the still air. You glance at them only briefly, because that's all you need. Each hammock is occupied, but not by the living. They are not corpses, not exactly. Nor are they specters. These are the still sleeping a name you invented for them on your 5th or 50th night aboard, back when you still counted time. They do not breathe, but they shift. They do not rot, but they age. You have seen their hair grow. Their faces change. Once you saw a hand twitch clutching at an invisible knife. You avoid eye contact with the sleeping forms. It's not a superstition. It's survival. One of the girls, Marianne, you think, though no one uses names anymore, once stared too long into the eyes of one of the sleepers. She spent the next 3 nights speaking only in backwards verse, her mouth moving like a fish struggling to remember how to drown. She vanished on the 4th night. No one asked how. The prow is still ahead, but now for the first time it no longer looks unreachable. There's a sliver of moonlight breaking through the fog, just enough to outline its silhouette. You see it clearly. A thin mast, a pair of rails, a lantern hook. Your destination, your curse, your cathedral. But as you step forward, a new sensation halts you. Heat, a pocket of it invisible but undeniable, like stepping into the breath of something not human. The air thickens with it. Your skin prickles. Your throat tightens, then sound, low at first. Just a single tone. A hum. No, a thrum. Something metallic resonating at a frequency just barely within the range of hearing. It vibrates through your chest cavity like a tuning fork held against bone. You stagger slightly and instinctively reach for your lantern, only to remember again that it's gone. That what you carry now is not a flame, but a glow. That glow brightens gently but perceptibly in response to the sound. You walk toward it. The source is not a person, not a creature. It is a structure, an archway of blackened wood and brass fused together with bolts and rope, pulsing at its center with veins of molten orange light. It has no place on a ship. It's too large, too symmetrical, too old in a way that isn't temporal but conceptual, like it was built in the blueprint of time before time began. You stop before it, and the music begins. It's not music in the way we understand it. No instruments, no rhythm, no chorus. But there's a pattern, a rising and falling, a logic behind the madness. The closest thing you can compare it to is whale song if whales sang in forgotten dialects of wind and rust and memory. And within that music you hear things, a door slamming, a mother's whisper, a captain's vow, a child's laughter cut short, the sound of your own name pronounced with reverence and sorrow by a voice you have never heard before, but know you would follow into ruin. The archway opens, not mechanically, not dramatically. It simply stops being closed. Beyond it lies a stairwell, spiral, downward, carved into the ship's bones, leading not to the hull but beneath it, to the part of the ship that doesn't obey architecture. You know this stairwell. You've seen it before, in dreams, in puddles, reflected in the eyes of sailors just before they vanished. You place one foot on the top stair. It moans beneath you, a sound that is not pain, but invitation, and you descend. The glow from your hands now pulses in sync with something below. The deeper you go, the warmer the air becomes, until it's almost unbearable. And then it cools, Suddenly, sharply. The heat is gone, replaced with cold so profound it burns. You reach the bottom, a chamber, circular, stone where there should be wood, a floor made of overlapping tiles that feel like teeth beneath your feet, and at the center, a table. No, not a table, an altar. Upon it lies another lantern. This one is closed, sealed with iron clasps. It radiates neither light nor heat, but it pulls at you, gravitationally, emotionally, existentially. You step closer, and the whispers return, not the soft ambient murmurs of the deck above. These are sharp, directed, personal. She walked too far. She should have turned back. She thought she was different. Let her carry it. You place your hand on the lantern. It opens, not all at once. The clasps click back in sequence one by one, as though counting. 5 clicks, then silence, then a breath, and then from within light, not fire, not glow, but memory weaponized and made visible. Your eyes fill with scenes, your childhood, yes, but altered. The ship at port, your first step aboard, the moment your name was called in a language no longer spoken aloud, faces you've forgotten, but missed every night, choices you made without knowing, promises you broke before you knew they were promises. The lantern shows them all, and then it whispers one word: walk. You do. Back up the stairs, though they no longer wind. The archway is gone. The music has ended, but the light remains. Inside you, around you, beneath your feet, and ahead the prow. You can see it now, clearly. It waits. The prow of the Flying Dutchman waits not like a destination, but like a sentence that hasn't been finished, held in suspension for too long, its punctuation bleeding into the unknown. It looms ahead with deceptive stillness, a figure carved out of starlit void, wrapped in the ragged breath of a ship that is more myth than vessel. You see it clearly now, not because the fog has lifted, though it has thinned enough for the outline to sharpen, but because something inside you has changed. The ship has not become less mysterious, but you have grown more fluent in its language of silence repetition and restrained illumination. As you walk forward, the glow that emanates from your palms has settled into a steady living warmth, not bright, not searing, but present like a memory kept alive by love and the refusal to forget. It has soaked into your skin, into the lines of your fingers, and the space beneath your fingernails, making it impossible to tell where the light ends and you begin. The lantern you opened below decks, the one wrapped in iron, and memory has not followed you physically, but it remains with you nonetheless, or rather, it has integrated with you in a way that renders the need for external fire obsolete. The deck beneath you feels narrower now, not because the ship has shifted, but because every inch you pass seems to resist your presence with the reluctance of something long untouched. You are treading into territory that the rest of the crew never dares to enter consciously or otherwise. Whether out of fear, reverence, or programming, they never make it this far. The prow belongs to someone or something else. And yet here you are approaching without invitation, drawn forward by duty compulsion and the strange pull of inevitability. As your foot touches a particularly warped plank near the forward mast, the ship groans not in pain, but in recognition. It is a low, sustained sound that rises from the depths of the hull, like a warning whispered by a forgotten priest. The mast creaks in response, its rigging trembling slightly, not because of wind, there is none, but because you are nearing the place where wind used to matter. Here, movement is governed not by nature, but by memory and myth. You continue forward past the last of the tar-stained barrels and frayed ropes until the rest of the ship lies behind you in shadow and suggestion, and all that remains before you is the tip of the Dutchman's nose, the figurehead, and the space beyond. The figurehead has changed again. You knew it would. Everything on this ship exists in states of transformation. She is no longer the broken winged angel, nor the silent singer carved in eternal song. Now she is blindfolded. A strip of weathered cloth impossibly real for something made of wood has been tied across her face, knotted at the back of her carved skull. Her mouth is shut, lips pressed together, in an expression of reluctant knowing, and her hands, newly grown from her sides, are reaching outward, not in welcome or defiance, but as if trying to feel what cannot be seen. The blindfold is fluttering slightly, though there is no breeze. It moves in time with your breath. That's the part that makes you pause. That's the part that reminds you. This ship doesn't just remember you. It mirrors you, responds to you, builds itself around you, folding your thoughts into timber and rope your fears into salt and sail. You move closer, inch by inch, not because the deck is treacherous, but because instinct tells you that haste here would be a form of disrespect. You do not run toward prophecy. You approach it with the slowness of those who understand the weight of inevitability. Once you reach the base of the figurehead, you kneel not out of reverence, not because it demands it, but because your legs no longer know how to carry the moment. The light in your hands flickers slightly, as if acknowledging the shift. You are no longer just the lantern girl. You are now the vessel, the bearer of flame, the continuation of a ritual no one remembers starting. And in this moment, the ship begins to speak, not in words, never in words, but in sensation, in deep vibrations that echo up from the hull into your knees, into your spine, into the crown of your head. Images form behind your eyes, unbidden and uncontrollable. You see the Dutchman, as she once was newly christened, her sails taut with ambition, her crew drunk on pride and seawater. You see the captain, proud and young, swearing his oath to round the Cape of Good Hope, even as the sky split open with fury. You see the wave, colossal and sentient, rising like a hand made of moonlight and spite. You see the curse not as a word spoken, but as a choice made. And then you see her, the first lantern girl, not you, but like you, small, determined, wearing a cloak stitched with the names of those lost, carrying a lantern that never burned but always glowed. She walked too, every night, for years, decades, centuries. You see the pain in her gait, the ache in her wrists, the silence she wrapped herself in to endure the weight of the journey. And then she vanished. No, not vanished, became the ship, or rather was folded into it. She was the first flame. You are the next. Your eyes snap open and the figurehead's blindfold is gone. Her eyes stare directly into yours. They are wooden, yes, but they are also full of salt, of stars, of stories. Her lips part, and for the first time in your long looping existence aboard this vessel, a voice is heard, not through ears but directly within your skull. It is not yours, it is not hers, it is a chorus. Countless voices braided into one. You are closer than any before you. You want to ask what that means. How close to what, to the end, to freedom. But you know better. The ship answers only in silence, and the silence always knows more than you're ready to hear. You rise slowly, letting your hand brush the carved shoulder of the figurehead. It's warm. The wood breathes. She does not stop you, and then the lantern returns, not in your hand, not in your sight, but all around you. Tiny flames erupt softly, soundlessly along the rails of the prow. One by one, they light themselves in a ring, forming a circle around where you now stand. They burn without heat, without smoke, pale, blue-white, like the eyes of the sea. The wind returns. This time it is real. It moves your hair, fills the sails, causes the ropes to dance like puppets on invisible strings. And it carries with it something else, something subtle but unmistakable. Scent, land, not near, not clear, but present. A possibility, a whisper of shore, of conclusion. You fall to your knees again, not in defeat, but in surrender to the moment. You whisper aloud, not because you believe the ship will answer, but because some words deserve to be said aloud, at least once. Let me finish it. The ship sighs, and you feel for the first time that it might allow you to try. The moment hangs, not in stillness, but in that deep, breathing hush that settles over a theater just before the first line is spoken. The flames surrounding you flicker, not with wind for wind. Here is more suggestion than force, but with anticipation, as if they too are waiting to see what you will do next. The air feels different now, charged, taut, full of all the things that haven't happened yet, but are curled beneath the surface of the world, ready to pounce or bloom or bleed. You rise again, slowly, deliberately, allowing each vertebra to announce itself with a faint crackle. Your legs tremble, but not from fear. It's the weight of having come this far, when so many others have not. You are beginning to feel the quiet burden of accumulated steps, every previous attempt, every abandoned hope, every faltering stride echoing behind you like unseen footsteps pacing your own. The figurehead, now stripped of her blindfold, watches you with that same unreadable expression, carved from both grief and permission. Her eyes do not move, yet you feel them follow you. There is no malice in her gaze, no sadness either, only witness. She does not command, nor beg, nor bless. She simply watches, a sentinel made of silence. You take a breath. It does not calm you, but it grounds you. Then you step across the threshold. The prow. This prow that has taunted you for what feels like lifetimes stretches out before you fully now. No longer hidden by mist or memory, it reveals itself as a slender tongue of deck, bordered by thin railings, twisted with ropes, aged to silver gray. It juts into the void like a question the sea itself has never managed to answer. Beyond it, nothing. No stars, no horizon, no sea. Just emptiness. A hungry, soundless space that waits without urgency, without threat. A mouth that neither opens nor closes. A presence that simply is. But beneath your feet, the ship is alive. You feel it in every plank, every nail. The wood pulses subtly, rhythmically, as if synced to a distant drum buried deep in the ocean floor. And this rhythm, it does not match the sway of the tide or the beat of your heart. It is older, stranger. A heartbeat not meant for lungs and blood, but for stories and songs and oaths sealed under dying moons. A voice behind you speaks not aloud, but directly into your memory. You are the sixth. You freeze, not from shock, but from sudden comprehension. Of course you are. You remember now. Not names, not faces, but the sense of them. The 5 before. Lantern girls, all of them. Each different, yet each the same. Each chosen or trapped or born into this cycle. Each given the light and the path and the silence. Each one walking forward night after night, step after step toward a destination that never arrived. Until you look at your hands. The glow remains steady now. Golden rich, not bright, but warm like the last memory of a candle long after it's gone out. You close your fists, then open them. The light doesn't fade. It's not something you carry. It's something you've become. The ship recognizes this. It creaks beneath you, not in protest, but in accommodation. The prow widens slightly, reshaping itself, allowing you more space. The railing twists into a more elegant curve, and beneath your feet, the wood darkens, absorbing the light you radiate without dimming it. You take a step forward, then another. Then, and the lantern appears again. Hanging from a single rusted hook at the very tip of the prow, it dangles like a forgotten relic. Its glass is cracked, its handle bent, but inside a tiny flame dances faint blue-white, barely visible unless you're looking for it. You are looking for it. You reach out. Your hand wraps around the lantern's handle with unexpected familiarity. It's cold, but not dead. You lift it gently, unhooking it with a motion that feels rehearsed. The flame inside responds immediately, flaring slightly, pulsing once like a heartbeat in recognition, and then the ship begins to move. Not forward, not backward, it turns. You don't feel the motion in your body, but the stars begin to shift. The deck beneath your feet no longer stretches forward. It begins to curl like a spiral or a question mark, slowly arcing around some invisible point. The lantern in your hand grows warmer. The prow narrows again, forming a sharp point aimed directly into the void ahead. And for the first time since you arrived, the sea parts. It doesn't split like a biblical miracle, nor crash apart like a storm-torn tide. It simply opens softly, quietly, revealing beneath it a path made not of water or sand or rock, but of light. A ribbon of golden threads braided into a walkway glowing gently beneath the surface like a road stitched into the ocean's skin. You step to the edge, and the moment your foot touches that path, the lantern erupts with light. Not a flare, not a blaze, but a steady, illuminating brilliance that flows outward from its flame like a wave. The entire prow is bathed in it. The ship hums beneath you. The figurehead closes her eyes, and the chorus returns. This time it is not inside your head. It pours out of the ship itself, out of the masts, the sails, the ropes. It is the voice of every lantern bearer before you, singing not in words, but in tone. Long, low notes that vibrate in your ribs. They do not mourn. They do not rejoice. They witness. They support. They hold. You raise the lantern high. The path ahead pulses. The sea, that silent audience, holds its breath, and then you walk. The first step is the hardest. Not because it requires effort, but because it requires belief. You expect resistance or collapse, or the betrayal of something so impossibly fragile as light beneath your foot. But the path holds, solid, real. You walk, and with each step, the ship begins to fade behind you. Not vanish, not dissolve, but grow dimmer, softer, as if receding into a fog of dream and distance. You do not look back, not because you are forbidden, but because you are finished. You do not need to see it again, because the ship is inside you now, and it will remain there, coiled in memory, in marrow, in the subtle ache of your shoulders when you wake from certain dreams. You walk, and for the first time, the path does not stretch endlessly. Ahead, the light begins to shift, rippling gently, resolving itself into shapes. Not land, not exactly, but place. A shore made of memory and possibility. An end, perhaps, or a beginning wrapped in a different kind of silence. You walk. The lantern stays bright. You walk not as someone escaping, nor as someone arriving, but as someone completing the final turn of an ancient wheel. The path beneath your feet remains a ribbon of light, woven from something that pulses with the breath of long-lost voices winding softly across the open water without ever truly touching it. You can feel the distance closing now, but it isn't the kind of distance you measure in steps or hours. It is the distance between questions and their answers, between story and resolution, between a girl with a lantern and the place where her light was always meant to shine. The air around you shifts again, no longer stagnant, no longer thick with sea salt and ship's breath. It becomes clearer, cooler, cleaner, as if you've climbed a mountain instead of walked a path. And for the first time since stepping foot, aboard the Flying Dutchman. You can smell life in the air, not the rot of shipwood, not the damp rot of half-forgotten cargo, or the mildew of coiled ropes left to molder in corners. No, this scent is different. It is the smell of soil warmed by the sun, of rain lingering on leaves, of something that remembers spring. And with that scent comes sound, soft at first, like fingers trailing across the strings of a forgotten harp. The music rises not from ahead, but from below, and not from a single source, but from many harmonizing without a center. It is not a song, not exactly. It has no lyrics, no verse, no refrain, but it holds a shape, the shape of joy with the corners folded down, the shape of welcome with its arms held still. You do not recognize the melody, and yet you've heard it before somewhere between waking and sleep, in the moments when you were not entirely sure you were still you. You continue walking. The path begins to widen imperceptibly at first, until it fans out into a flat space, a circular plateau suspended in nothing like a stage built from the remnants of a dream. And upon this platform stand 7 lanterns, each one unique in form and flicker, yet somehow kin to yours. You do not question their presence. You know what they are, who they were. They are the others, the 5 that came before, the one who walked beside you in the mist, and the one who will come next. Each lantern glows in a different hue, one violet like dusk, one red like rust, one green like seaweed pressed into the pages of a logbook, one silver like the gleam of a cutlass in moonlight, one pale gold like a memory half erased by salt. The 6th burns a shade so deep it almost disappears when you look at it directly. It is the color of waiting, of restraint, of a promise unclaimed. Yours, your 7th flares to life with a gentle hush of breath, as if exhaling in relief to be home. You kneel in the center, not out of duty, not out of fatigue, but because your legs understand what your heart has not yet put into words. This is where you stop. This is where the walk ends, not with collapse or conclusion, but with offering. You set your lantern gently on the platform beside the others, and the light within it changes. It does not fade. It deepens, folds inward, becoming richer, as if it has found its true shape. Then the voices return, not as whispers, not as echoes, as welcomes. They do not say your name, they say your truth. You were not the first nor the last, but you were the one who saw the prow and chose to reach it. You were the one who walked with light even when it went out. You were the one who did not ask why the ship required a lantern bearer. You simply bore it, and in doing so, you lit something far older than the sea. The platform trembles beneath your knees, not with fear, but with the vibration of something waking. Slowly, with reverence, the lanterns rise, not floating, not flying, but being lifted by invisible hands. One by one, they ascend into the air above the platform, their flames rotating slowly like planets around a sun. Your lantern joins them. Together they begin to spin, forming a wheel of fire, a constellation of memory. And you are no longer kneeling. You are standing. You are rising with them. Below you, the path dissolves. The ribbon of light unweaves itself, each thread scattering into the darkness and embedding itself into the silence. The sea beneath closes again, not in anger, not in secrecy, but in contentment. Its role, for now, is finished, and from the center of the lantern circle, a new figure begins to form. She is not you, but she is made from you. You recognize her not by face or form, but by motion, by breath, by the way she lifts her hands to receive the light. She is the next, not chosen by the ship, not selected by curse, but called by resonance. Your glow sings to her, and she listens. You do not descend, you do not return, you do not vanish. You change. Your light and the others pour into her, not to fill her, not to claim her, but to awaken what was already waiting. The figure opens her eyes. She is afraid, but she is ready. And somewhere unseen but not unknown, the Dutchman creaks. The ship turns. A new night begins, and somewhere far below the waves, in a place that is neither tomb nor temple, your name is carved into wood that no longer rots. The sea forgets nothing. Even now, as you hover above it, no longer tethered to the weight of flesh and bone, no longer bound by the careful, aching labor of step after step upon that creaking, haunted deck, you sense the sea remembering you. It remembers your breath as it came ragged and slow on storm-soaked nights. It remembers your bare feet, tracing silent paths across the wood. It remembers the oil-streaked handle of your lantern slipping once briefly from your grip in a squall. It remembers your heartbeat on the nights you nearly gave up, and it remembers the deeper rhythm that you never heard, but always followed just beneath the surface of your waking thoughts. You are no longer walking. You are no longer waiting. You are for the first time watching. Suspended above the sea and beyond the reach of the Flying Dutchman's shadow, you see everything now. Not in sharp edges or definite shapes, but in truths. They hang in the air, like translucent sails catching winds of thought memory and ancient echoing names long since drowned. Below you, the ship drifts, not because it is idle, but because it is listening. The Flying Dutchman, in all its faded glory and perpetual unrest, has grown still. It awaits instruction, or maybe simply waits for the next pair of footsteps to begin the cycle anew. But something is different now. You can feel it. In the water, in the ship, in the air, between stars. A shift, a turning. Not a break, because nothing here is ever truly broken, but a recalibration. A wheel groaning forward, another click in the great clockwork of fates bound to salt and myth. You reach outward, not physically, but through the glow that now surrounds you. Threads of warm, golden light unfurling from your form, like tendrils of wind-bent flame. They reach into the dark, and the dark does not resist. It receives them, like soil receiving rain. One thread winds its way back to the Dutchman. It curls along the railing, passes over the cracked barrels, slides between the sleeping hammocks. It brushes the wheel. It coils around the base of the mainmast like a cat returning to an old perch. Eventually, it finds the captain. He stands alone at the helm, not commanding, not steering, simply standing. His hat is in his hands. His gaze is fixed on the stars, but not in wonder, in resignation, or maybe reverence. He feels the thread. His fingers twitch as it slides over his shoulder, wraps once around his wrist. He does not resist. He closes his eyes and bows his head. Another thread finds the galley cook, the one who has not spoken in 40 years, but still slices bread every night for a crew that neither eats nor thanks him. It brushes his temple, and for the first time in decades, he hums. Just a single note, cracked and low, but unmistakably human. One more thread weaves its way to the girl who sleeps in the crow's nest, a girl whose name was never recorded in the ship's logs, whose voice never echoed down to the decks who watched the world spin from above in silence. The thread wraps gently around her waist like a belt of promise. She stirs, opens her eyes, smiles. You don't command these threads. You don't direct them. You are not the puppeteer. You are the flame that warms their motion. The source, now, not the seeker. Below you, the Dutchman groans. But this time it is not in sorrow. The ship does not mourn. It breathes. In, out, in, out. As though at last it has found a rhythm worth continuing. Farther below, deeper than hull or ballast or barnacle-covered keel, the ocean begins to open. not in violence but in invitation. The water parts, not dramatically, not forcefully, but with reverence. A shape rises from beneath the waves. You recognize it instantly, though you've never seen it before. It is not a ship, not a creature. It is something more conceptual, something that has haunted the margins of every sailor's tale since the beginning of time. It is the first vessel. It has no name because names came after. It has no sail because it sails without wind. Its hull is made of silence, its mast of memory. It glows not with flame, but with the light of all journeys ever taken, all roads ever crossed, all hearts that ever broke. While staring across open water, it draws near to the Dutchman, and for a moment they do not face each other as rivals. They regard each other as kin, one cursed to never land, one destined to begin all voyages. You feel the tension between them, the ache of connection unfulfilled. But that tension does not swell into conflict. It settles into acknowledgement. And as the first vessel glides past the Dutchman, you see the shadow of something climbing aboard, the next lantern bearer. She is young, barely more than a girl. Her clothes are torn, but clean. Her hands tremble. She carries no lantern yet, but there is a brightness in her chest, faint and flickering as though her heart has already been lit. You recognize her. She is not you, but she is the part of you that never stopped walking. You descend. Gently, slowly, like mist returning to the sea, you lower yourself toward her, though she cannot see you. Not yet. She stands at the base of the mast, blinking up at the tangle of sails and the vast, endless sky. She whispers something. A prayer, maybe. A name. A promise. You place your hand, your light on her shoulder, and she turns, not her head, herself. She turns inward, and for a moment, you are not two beings, but one. The flame that was yours finds its echo in her. Not overwhelming, not replacing, merely joining. Your lantern, now hollow, fades completely. Her chest glows brighter, then you are apart again. And you rise, this time not to watch, but to rest. The sky above you opens wide and soft like the space between a sigh and a lullaby. The stars realign. The wind forgets your name and you let it. The Dutchman drifts again, carrying her new bearer. The first vessel vanishes beneath the waves, waiting for another to call it forth. And you dissolve, not in death. In completion, you have walked far enough. You have carried the flame. For a moment, or perhaps something longer, something more primal than moments, there is nothing. Not silence, not darkness, not stillness, nothing. The kind of nothing that exists not before something, but beyond it. It is the absence of echo, of identity, of separation. And in that perfect void, you do not exist as a figure or a flame or a memory, or even a thought. You exist as a resonance, a note played once on a forgotten instrument, still vibrating somewhere in the furthest chamber of the universe. But eventually, as all things must, the nothing gives way, not to light, not to movement, but to awareness, a gentle pressure, returning to the edges of your perception, like the first sensation of your limbs upon waking from a sleep too deep to name. You are aware again, not of yourself, not yet, but of something else, a rhythm. It is subtle at first, almost indistinguishable from stillness. But as it grows, you realize it is the rhythm of breath, not yours, but another's. Slow, unsure, unpracticed. A breath drawn not from lungs accustomed to life, but from lungs newly acquainted with being. And with that, breath space takes shape. Air, temperature, gravity. You feel it forming around you, not because you demand it, but because someone else needs it to be there. You are watching her now, the girl, the new one, the next. She stands alone on the quarterdeck shoulders, hunched against a wind that does not touch her skin. Her hands are clenched, not from fear, but from instinct. She is waiting for something she cannot name, waiting for the ship to speak, or the stars to move, or for anyone to tell her what to do. But the ship says nothing. The sails are still. The sea, endless as ever, wraps the Dutchman in silence. She looks down at her palms. They are empty. You feel her confusion, because she was supposed to be given something. A lantern, a light, a map, but what she was given was you. You are no longer a flame, no longer a figure hovering at her shoulder, no longer a voice that might whisper through the mist. You are within her now, folded into the echo of her thoughts, braided into her spine, woven into her breath. And with that merging comes something unexpected remembering, not your own, hers. Her life before this place was not dramatic, not tragic in the traditional sense. She did not die in a storm. She was not cast overboard or cursed by a jealous god. She came here because she dreamed of water every night for years, dreamed of salt and fog and a ship with sails that never caught wind. She was not chosen. She was drawn. She had no name when she arrived, at least not one she remembered, but she remembers now. Because of you, you do not give her a name. You give her the shape of it, and she fills it. Her shoulders straighten. Her eyes, which were wide and blank with the disorientation of arrival, now narrow in consideration. She walks forward, and her steps hesitant at first find rhythm. The crew does not speak to her. They never do not at the beginning, but they watch from shadows and corners, from rope ladders and barrel tops, from behind curtainless portholes, and in the reflection of oil-slick puddles. They watch her as she crosses the deck, as she traces the path that has been carved by countless feet before hers. And they listen, not to her voice. She does not speak yet. They listen to the sound of her silence. It is strong. You drift further into her now, not as a possession or an influence, but as a companion. You are not directing her path. You are lighting it. With every choice she makes, every turn, every pause, every glance upward, you flare gently, confirming, encouraging, affirming. She reaches the forecastle, here, where the ship curves forward into myth, where the winds are thickest and the mist most reluctant to part. She pauses. This place feels like the edge of the world. Not in a dramatic sense, but in the way that a final page feels in the hand when you do not want the story to end. She places her hand on the railing. It is slick with condensation. The salt burns her palm, but she does not let go. Below her, the sea churns with secrets, and suddenly, unexpectedly, you feel it. The thing that lives below, not a beast, not a god, not even a curse, but the awakening. It does not have a name, but it has a will, and it is watching, not her, you. It knows you. It knows the weight of your light. It knows the shape of your steps. It knows what you have become and what you might still be. And it stirs, not to strike, to respond. Beneath the Dutchman, the waters part, not visibly, not with violence or spectacle, but on some deeper level. A shifting of thought, a widening of the space between molecules. You feel it like a yawn in the bones of the world, and you feel her feel it too. She turns sharply as if sensing something just behind her, but finds only mist. Still, her posture changes. She begins to walk again, not toward the prow this time, but downward toward the underdeck. The ship groans in response, its boards trembling beneath her, not in resistance, but in recognition. You know what comes next, but she does not, and you do not show her, because this path must be hers. You descend with her. The ship, which once felt like a prison of narrow beams and low ceilings, now opens before her like a cathedral. Shadows stretch along the walls in curious shapes. Echoes slip through corridors. The lanterns hanging from the beams flicker, even though no one has touched them. and then she finds the room of passage. You remember it though, it was never yours. It belongs to all lantern bearers. It is not marked. It is not locked. It is simply there when needed and gone when not. She opens the door and it swings silently inward. The room is round, lined with mirrors that do not reflect her. Instead, each one shows a scene not from her life, but from the lives of those who came before. You see yourself, not as you were, as she remembers you. You carrying the lantern, you walking endlessly, you opening the sealed flame, you touching the figurehead, you rising into the light, and beside you others, the 5 before you. Lantern bearers of different times, different forms, one with hair braided in bells, one missing an arm, one so old her eyes had turned to pearls, all of them walking, all of them lighting. She watches, not with fear, but with reverence, and slowly she steps inside. Each mirror flares as she passes, and one by one they go dark, not in dismissal, in trust, until only one remains. It is blank. It is hers. She stands before it, and for the first time speaks. Just one word. It isn't her name. It's begin. And the mirror lights up. The mirror stares back at her, not with glass, not with silvered clarity, but with a depth that denies reflection. It is not black, and yet it holds darkness. It is not hollow, and yet it breathes. Before her, it hums faintly, as if awakening from a long, polite slumber. And within its silent resonance lies something not often granted on the Dutchman possibility. The girl does not look away, not even when the floor beneath her shifts subtly, not even when the ship seems to draw a deeper breath around her. She stands still, her feet planted, her arms loose by her sides, her eyes steady, as the mirror pulses once more, not in light, but in meaning. You feel it too, not because you are inside her, but because what you once were. Your memory, your burden. Your light now lives in tandem with her awareness. You are the shadow beside her thoughts, the breath behind her, will the warmth in her fingertips when she brushes something familiar and can't quite explain why it moves her so deeply. You do not speak to her. You do not guide her like a whisper from the past. You are simply with her, silent and constant like gravity or time. That is the way of the lantern bearers. Each one carries the ashes of the one before, and now she must light her own flame. The mirror does not show a path. It does not instruct. It does not warn. It does not even shimmer with false promises or trick her with visions of things she longs for. It simply waits. The ship creaks softly around her timbers, groaning in rhythms too deliberate to be random. The air in the chamber thickens, folds inward, compressing gently like a wave pulling back before it curls and crashes. Something is about to happen, but it will not happen to her. It will happen because of her. She reaches forward, her hand pale and calloused and utterly mortal, stretches toward the mirror's surface with a slowness that does not stem from fear, but from reverence. She is not afraid, not anymore. The Dutchman has shown her enough flashes and puddles, voices in rigging dreams, hidden in the knots of ancient ropes, that she understands now fear has no power in this place unless it is given permission, and she will not grant it. Her fingers make contact. The mirror ripples not in glass, but in memory. The room around her vanishes in layers. First the floor, then the walls, then the very sense of enclosure. The ship is gone, or perhaps it remains beneath her invisible weightless, carried now only in the bones of her memory. She floats, not above sea nor beneath sky. She floats in between, suspended in a space made entirely of potential. The mirror expands. It is no longer a rectangle on a wall. It is the world. It stretches into all directions, blooming like a canvas being painted in reverse. Shapes take form: a doorway made of stars, a corridor made of sea foam, a staircase that rises and loops like a spiral shell. Each form pulses with intention, each beckoning her in a different way, yet none of them pull at her directly. They wait, poised, patient, like memories eager to be remembered, but only when the dreamer is ready. She breathes. You feel it not in lungs, but in pulse. Her heart quickens not from alarm, but from alignment. The air vibrates gently. A path begins to unfurl beneath her feet, woven from golden filaments and soft strands of mist. It does not lead anywhere specific, because here destinations are created by desire, not by direction. The girl steps forward. Each footfall echoes not with sound but with affirmation. You remember this, the beginning of your own walk, but where yours was guided by tradition, repetition, and the unspoken weight of duty, hers is different. It is not duty that guides her. It is choice. She chooses to walk, not because she has no other option, but because she has begun to understand the quiet truth that the Dutchman itself has never spoken aloud. Those who walk with a lantern are not cursed. They are trusted. She does not carry one yet, but you see it forming. It does not dangle from her hand. It does not hang from a chain. It grows inside her light, curling upward from her spine, collecting at her chest, pooling at the center of her ribs, like molten gold, taking shape inside a glassblower's mold. And as it gathers, it reveals more of the path ahead, not through illumination, but through invitation. The girl walks. The corridor stretches ahead and around her, shifting with her motion, unfolding new rooms, new stairs, new impossible hallways that defy the architecture of any ship or shore. Each space is built not from materials, but from questions she hasn't asked yet. She enters one, a room filled with ropes, hundreds of them, all hung from the ceiling, their ends disappearing into floorboards made of fog. Some are coiled neatly. Others hang in frayed, snarled tangles. One drips with blood. Another glows softly blue, vibrating with a sound like a lullaby underwater. She walks past them. She understands what they are: choices, lives, threads of possible futures. She does not touch them. Not yet. Another room. This one is filled with boots lined in pairs against the walls. Some new, some rotted, some too small to belong to sailors, some caked in salt and time. A name is carved into the heel of each one, but none of them are legible. The letters have been smoothed by wind and wear reduced to gentle curves and cracks. She does not try them on. She walks. Another chamber. This one quieter than all the rest. Just a chair, facing a wall. On the wall, a single sentence carved so delicately, it looks like it was written by breath. She walked without needing to arrive. The girl stares at it. Then she smiles, not because she understands fully, but because she is beginning to. She sits. The moment her body touches the chair, the floor beneath her pulses once. The fog that had formed the ground now lifts. She does not fall. She rises, back to the ship, back to the now, back to the place where the story pauses long enough to let her catch her breath. She awakens standing, lantern in hand, not empty, full, not borrowed, hers. The glow is soft but steady. She turns, and for the first time the crew sees her, not the girl, the bearer. They nod, one by one. Even those you never saw nod before the helmsman made of bark, the ghost with no jaw. The woman whose eyes weep ink, they nod. And you step back, or rather you dissipate. You do not fade into nothing. You return to the ship, to the rails, to the ropes, to the salt in the boards, to the curve of the figurehead's smile. You will not carry the lantern again. You do not need to. You were never the flame. You were the match. There is a moment, just a sliver of breath held too long between the heart's steady beats, when the lantern bearer ceases to be merely a passenger and becomes something far greater, far older. It happens not with ceremony or spectacle, but with silence, as though the very act of becoming cannot survive in the presence of noise. And in that quiet, the ship itself seems to pause, acknowledging the shift, adjusting its ancient rhythms to accommodate a new center of gravity. The Flying Dutchman, so often indifferent to the passage of time, so often unmoved by the desires of its crew, responds now not with thunder, but with stillness. It listens. She does not yet know the full extent of what she has inherited. She cannot. No one ever does at first. The lantern in her hand glows with a light that is not fire, not electricity, not anything that could be harnessed or extinguished by mere will. It is a light born from story, accumulated, distilled, shaped through the weight of footsteps and the echoes of decisions made by those who walked before her. It is in essence a history given form, and it pulses in rhythm with the breath of the ship. She walks slowly now, not because she is unsure, but because she is listening too. The air has changed, thickened slightly with awareness. Each creak of wood beneath her feet, each sway of the lantern's beam across the deck feels heavy with meaning. And it is not just the ship that watches her. The crew, those wandering remnants of forgotten lives, have come to attention. They emerge from shadows, from ladders, from hatches and half-opened doors. They come barefoot and barefooted, clad in uniforms from a dozen different centuries stitched with salt and secrets. Their eyes are not alive exactly, but neither are they dead. They shimmer faintly, reflecting the lantern's glow in ways that no natural light could. They do not speak, not yet. But their silence is not passive. It is anticipatory. She reaches the mainmast. It rises above her like a tree that has forgotten the soil, its rigging tangled like veins across the sky. The ropes hang slack, but there is tension in them, as if they could spring into motion with a single word. She places one hand against the wood. It is warm. Not sun-warmed, not heated by friction or engine, but alive in a different way, like the side of a beast at rest. The mast vibrates faintly, and through it she feels something deep and slow, the ship's heartbeat. Not metaphorical, not imagined, real. The Dutchman has a pulse, and she can feel it now, because she is part of it. Not just a crew member, not just a lantern bearer, something more, something central. The ship responds. A gust of wind, sudden and unexpected, snaps the sails. The fog pulls back, just slightly revealing a sky still starless but no longer black. There is color now, a faint indigo curling at the edges of the horizon like the first line of a forgotten painting. The ship groans and turns, not because it has been commanded, but because it desires to face this color. For the first time in an age beyond counting, the Dutchman moves with purpose. She turns with it, her lantern held high, her eyes reflecting the growing light. She is no longer searching. She is summoning, and deep below something ancient stirs. You feel it first, not in the air, not in the wood, but in the space behind the ship's reflection on the water. That is where it has always dwelled, beneath the mirror, beneath the visible, beneath the remembered. It is not a creature, though it has shape. It is not a god, though it is worshipped in ways the worshippers never understand. It is the keeper of the vow. Every ship that swears to sail forever owes it a debt. Every sailor who whispers, "I'll return," without knowing if they will pay it a tithe. The Flying Dutchman is not cursed by some spiteful wind or angry ocean. It is bound by this presence, this unseen, omnipresent force, and now it has turned its attention to her. It does not rise. It does not reveal itself, but it reaches. The water near the bow darkens, not like ink spilling, but like a mouth opening. The sea does not boil. It stills. And in that stillness, the girl feels it. Not a voice, a question. Will you continue? Not for yourself, not for glory or release, but because you must, because the journey is not over, because there is still darkness and someone must carry the light through it. She answers, not with words, with motion. She steps to the edge of the prow lantern held aloft. Her arm trembles not with weakness, but with the sheer weight of meaning. The beam shines across the still water, and for the first time, the sea responds. It shines back, not with reflection, with direction. The light carves a path forward, not along the surface, but through the very concept of water. You see it too, though not with eyes. It is a path made of memory of moments that never happened, of futures that died unborn. It stretches ahead into the unknowable, and as the ship begins to follow it, a sound rises. Not a horn, not a bell, a song, low at first. Just a single note drawn from the deep vibrating in the bones of the hull. Then more. Harmonies born from ropes and sails, from footfalls and sighs. The crew begins to hum, not because they remember the melody, but because it remembers them. Each note is a thread pulled tight between lives, and with each passing measure, the ship grows lighter, not in weight, in purpose. She closes her eyes and the lantern flares. The path ahead brightens, and suddenly, though, no clock ticks, no bell chimes, no time has been marked in the way mortals understand it. You know that the voyage has begun again, not the same, not exactly, but with the same longing. The Dutchman has turned its face to a new unknown, and it will sail again not just because it must, but because it wants to. For the first time in a very long while, the ship carries not just memory, but hope, and she carries the flame, not because she was told to, because she chose to, because you chose her, because long ago you chose to walk forward and someone else saw that light, and now it burns again. The Flying Dutchman sails forward once more, but it is no longer drifting through the tired grooves of repetition, nor wandering without aim beneath the burden of its legend. Something has changed, not just within its timbers, nor only in the careful eyes of its crew, but in the very rhythm of its movement across the water. The ship that once dragged eternity behind it, like a weighted shroud, now cuts through the sea with the grace of a thought made real. Each ripple it leaves behind is a line of poetry no one will ever read, but the sea records it nonetheless, because this voyage matters in a way others did not. At the helm, the wheel remains unmanned, yet the ship obeys a course. Its direction is neither north nor southeast nor west. Instead, it moves toward something more abstract, more difficult to name, toward intention. And at the prow, the girl with the lantern becomes slowly the embodiment of that purpose. She does not shout orders. She does not turn to rally the crew. She simply walks forward holding the lantern aloft, the glow from within, now humming with such steadiness that the air around it has begun to shimmer like the horizon on a midsummer day. Below deck, the ship awakens in other ways. The hammocks begin to sway in time with the ocean's breath, not from waves or wind, but from something deeper. The Dutchman is remembering how to dream. The long corridors lined with portholes that never revealed anything now flicker with fragments of light. Through them, you can see not sea nor sky, but memories, some not belonging to the ship or to any one soul aboard, but collective fragments drawn from lifetimes of longing stories, once told beneath creaking beams, letters written but never sent. They flash and vanish in an instant, but the feeling they leave behind lingers like the warmth of hands recently held. The crew too is shifting, though none of them speak. Not in words, at least their movements grow more coordinated, more thoughtful, as if the soundless rhythms of the Dutchman have begun to permeate their limbs once more. A figure long thought, lost an ancient boatswain, with eyes made of sea glass, emerges from the shadows and takes his place beside the mainsail, running a hand along the rope in slow, reverent lines. The cook in the galley prepares food that no one eats, but the steam from the kettle carries the scent of time and memory. Even the rats that dwell in the darkest reaches of the hold seem less frantic now, as if sensing a new pattern in the way the ship breathes, and all the while above and behind you drift, not as ghost, not as god, but as echo. You are no longer bound to form or thought or even voice. You are woven into the fibers of the Dutchman, into the tension of its ropes, into the hush of its sails. You are not watching the girl. You are part of her, part of the ship, part of the journey. And in this role, you understand something that was never given to you before, not when you walked the deck, not when you stood beneath the figurehead's eyes, not even when you lit the lantern that refused to stay lit. You understand now that this story was never meant to end, not because it was cursed, but because it was needed. There are stories that close their covers with a satisfying finality, that tuck themselves into memory with neat bows and clear lessons. And then there are stories like this, one open-ended, tide-tossed stretching in both directions through history and possibility. They are stories meant to be carried, not concluded. Stories that ask for participants, not audiences. She is your continuation, not your replacement. As she walks forward, the ship follows, and somewhere beyond the prow, far ahead, in a place the eye cannot yet reach, the air begins to take on a strange brightness. It is not daylight. No sun has risen, but it is light nonetheless, pale, rich golden with promise and sadness. The kind of light that exists just before forgiveness. The kind of light that sometimes appears in dreams, before a reunion, before a choice, before a release. The girl pauses at the prow. The lantern in her hand pulses not urgently, but with deliberation. It is aware of what lies ahead. And so is she. You can feel her hesitation, not born of doubt, but of gravity. She understands that this moment matters. She knows that no bearer before her has come this far, that even you who endured so much never reached this place, not because you were weak, but because the path was not ready. The ship was not ready. The sea was not ready. But now everything is. She lifts the lantern higher. The light spills outward, not in a single beam, but in concentric waves, each one fanning out from the glass, like ripples from a stone dropped into a pond, too large to know its own shores. The waves pass over the deck, washing across the crew, who bow their heads in recognition, not submission. They understand what this moment is. Some of them have waited lifetimes to see it. As the light reaches the bow, the ship slows, not in fear, in reverence. The sea beneath the prow changes. It becomes something crystalline, reflective, not a mirror, but something closer to memory, given water. It shows no stars, no sky, no waves. It shows faces, hundreds, thousands, lantern bearers long forgotten, sailors who vanished into fog, daughters who whispered farewells at dockside, captains who never returned home, all of them for a moment visible, and then the light deepens. It grows denser, thicker, until it becomes a veil, not one to hide, but one to cross, a threshold. The ship, now silent but vibrant, drifts closer. She turns, not to ask, not to announce, simply to acknowledge that this is the moment, that what comes next will change the ship forever. The crew, once so fractured and silent, raise their hands not in applause, not in surrender, but in blessing. It is the only gift they have left to give. And then together the ship and the girl pass through the veil. There is no flash of light, no tearing sound, no sudden shift, just transition. The veil folds around them, and for a moment, everything becomes quiet again, like the moment between inhale and exhale. And when the veil parts, they are somewhere else, still on water, but not the sea they knew. The stars above are unfamiliar, shaped in constellations no sailor has ever charted. The waves are calm, but deeper than before, so deep that even myth would not dare to touch bottom. And the sky holds not the void, but the beginning of a horizon, a true one. It isn't land, not yet, but it could be. She lowers the lantern. It does not fade. It simply steadies, and the ship for the first time begins to feel its own weight. It is real again. No longer legend. No longer trapped in retelling. The Dutchman has crossed into the part of the story where it can become something new. And you are no longer behind. You are everywhere. In the creak of the mast, in the hush between stars, in the breath she draws before stepping once more. You were never meant to finish the story. You were meant to ensure it would never stop becoming. There is a quality to certain moments, a stillness so profound, it cannot be mistaken for calm, that reshapes the air around it. It alters the way sound travels, it changes the weight of breath, and it bends time ever so slightly out of step with the rest of the world. The Dutchman, for the first time in a length of history that cannot be measured in clocks or calendars, now sails within such a moment. Here in the hush, just beyond the veil, the ship floats not on water, but on the potential of what has never been dared before. The crew does not speak, but they do move. They begin to stir from the silent patterns that have defined their existence for generations, repetitions of choreographed purpose now softened into something almost human. The way one sailor touches the railing with fingers slow and reverent suggests remembrance. The way another adjusts the rigging, not because it must be done, but because he wants it done, suggests choice. These are not small shifts. These are seismic ripples across the bedrock of the Dutchman's identity, and at the heart of it the girl stands. She does not speak. She does not command. Her leadership is quiet, unwritten, unspoken. Yet everything aboard now orbits around her light, which remains steady in her hand, casting not just illumination, but understanding. The lantern's glow reaches not only the surface of the deck or the ropes that hang like spider silk from the mast. It reaches into the corners of the ship, where darkness had long since turned to habit. It reaches into the memories buried in the grain of the wood, into the salt that's been ground into every surface, into the sighs that never quite escaped the lungs of the sleeping crew. You feel it in 1,000 places at once because now you are the ship. You are in the groan of the planks in the stretch of canvas, in the subtle drift of the keel through this unfamiliar water. You no longer observe her, you inhabit the path she walks. Every time her foot presses against the wood, you feel the echo in your very frame. It is not the pain of burden, it is the satisfaction of movement with purpose. And beneath all of it, beneath deck and hull and sea itself, the deeper presence watches. The presence does not resemble a creature, nor a god. It has no form that can be spoken aloud without drawing madness close. But it is aware, sentient in a way that language cannot describe. It lives in the pressure of the ocean's coldest trench, in the eyes of storms, in the pause before a wave decides whether to rise or recede. It has been part of the Dutchman since the very beginning, since before the curse, before the vow, before the sea called itself home. It has always demanded tribute, and now at last it prepares to listen. The girl feels this too. She moves to the starboard railing, her steps soft and deliberate, as if the deck itself might shift beneath her if she were careless. She lifts the lantern slightly, just enough to bathe the water in light. What the sea gives back is not reflection, but response. The glow does not bounce off the surface. It is taken and absorbed, welcomed. And in that exchange, something changes beneath the waves. Ripples begin to rise, slow, measured, circular. They do not radiate outward. They build inward like fingers curling toward a palm. The sea draws itself in, tightens around the Dutchman, as though bracing for revelation. And then, without drama, the water opens, not in a splash, not with fury. It parts, and there in the hollow space where ocean once was rises a stairway, carved from stone so old it predates memory. The stairs shimmer faintly with moss that glows the way deep-sea creatures do a pale blue-green light that pulses in time with the ship's breath. The stairs descend not down into darkness, but through it, vanishing into a depth so absolute that sight becomes irrelevant. The girl steps back, eyes wide-mouthed, slightly parted, not from fear, but from awe. You understand this reaction. You remember what it was like to glimpse the place beneath the sea, not merely a physical depth, but a descent into the architecture of meaning. This is where vows were born. This is where lanterns were first lit. This is where the cost of endless journeys is weighed, and sometimes paid. The girl knows she is being invited, but not commanded. That is what makes it real. She does not hesitate long. A single breath, a glance toward the crew, who say nothing but watch with a kind of still reverence, and she moves. Lantern held high, she steps off the ship. Her feet touch the top stair, and the light pulses once, not as warning, but as acceptance. The crew does not follow. The Dutchman does not move. Only she descends. Each step is softer than the last. The further down she goes, the quieter the world becomes. The ship disappears from view behind her, swallowed not by distance, but by silence. The stairway curves not in space, but in thought, and gradually the path becomes less like a structure and more like a dream. Her surroundings are not visible in any traditional sense, but she can feel the memories, whispers, presences, watching her descent. This is the true heart of the sea, the part of it untouched by ship or storm, the part that remembers everything ever lost to its depths. At the bottom, she finds a door. It is not ornate. It has no carvings, but its presence is monumental. It pulses softly, waiting to be touched. She raises the lantern. The flame flares, and the door dissolves. Beyond it lies a chamber of impossible size. The ceiling is made of water, yet it does not fall. The walls are shaped by sound, constantly rearranging themselves in reaction to the breath and heartbeat of those within. In the center, a table, not wood, not stone, but a surface woven of shadow and light. On it, 7 lanterns rest. 6 are extinguished. The 7th, hers, still glows. As she approaches, the other 6 flicker faintly, as if recognizing her presence. These are the lanterns of those who came before, not relics, but remnants. They are not dead. They are resting. Each holds within it the story of a bearer who walked, who carried, who lit the path until they could carry it no longer. She places hers beside them. The moment she does, all 7 rise, not high, just enough to hover. The chamber responds. The ceiling glows, the walls sing, the floor ripples, and from above, from some place far beyond comprehension, a presence descends. Not a voice, a will. It fills the chamber. It does not ask questions. It does not offer answers. It listens, and the girl speaks, not aloud, not with sound, with thought. She tells her story. She tells your story. She tells the story of every footstep on that endless deck, of every breath held beneath a starlit sky, of every time the light dimmed and was lit again. She speaks of the choice to continue, of the refusal to surrender. She speaks of the walk that never ends, but always matters. When she is done, the silence deepens. Then slowly the presence retreats. The chamber dims. The 7 lanterns flicker one final time and vanish. The table remains. So does the girl, and so do you. But now you are not behind her. You are beside her. She turns, and for the first time she smiles. Not because something is finished, because something else has just begun. There is a soundless pause in the chamber, one that stretches far beyond the span of heartbeats, or hours, a kind of intermission, built not for rest, but for absorption. The moment following the vanishing of the 7 lanterns is neither triumphant nor sorrowful. It is simply true. The air in the vast chamber does not move, and yet it is charged with a living density, as though it remembers the shape of every voice that has ever spoken within its walls. And now, having borne witness to yet another lantern-bearer's offering, it settles again into its quiet cycle of waiting, not impatient, not expectant, but eternal. She stands in the center of this stillness, the girl who has walked further than any before, her surrounded by nothing but the residue of meaning. The floor beneath her no longer pulses. The ceiling no longer glows. The strange currents of memory and pressure that once wove the chamber's geometry seem to have flattened, as though even this mythic space has drawn a breath it does not yet know how to release. Yet despite the silence, she is not alone. You are with her. You have always been with her. But now she knows. She does not speak. There are no words for this kind of knowing. No language that can neatly contain the realization that you have not only inherited a legacy, but expanded it. That you have not only been chosen, but have in turn chosen something larger than yourself. The chamber responds to her awareness, not with another spectacle, not with the ghost of applause, but with warmth. Gentle warmth, like hands wrapping around her shoulders from behind, like breath against her spine. She turns not with alarm, but with trust, and behind her where the door once was now stands a corridor of light. It is narrow, slightly curved, and lined with faint threads of gold that flicker as though moved by some unseen wind. It leads upward, not vertically, not into the sky, but into something brighter than sky, something she has never seen before, but instantly recognizes. Not a place, not a destination, but a return. She does not hesitate. She walks forward. Each step carries with it the resonance of every footstep that came before. She can feel the weight of those echoes, not heavy, not burdensome, but grounding, like walking on sacred soil. With each movement, the corridor responds. Walls shift, subtly folding in and out like breath. The floor beneath her becomes smoother, more luminous. It is as though the path is learning from her gait, adjusting itself to match her purpose. The deeper she walks into the corridor, the more the world around her begins to hum. It's not music, not in any conventional sense. There are no instruments, no discernible melody. But the tones are rich, layered, harmonious in a way that makes her chest ache. They vibrate not just through her ears, but through her bones, her teeth, her blood. You feel them too carried along in the folds of her awareness. These sounds do not accompany her journey. They become the journey. With every step, the harmony deepens until it envelops her entirely. The end of the corridor is not a door, not a gate, not even an exit. It is a threshold, a border not between one place and another, but between was and could be. She steps across, and the world unfolds. The sea returns not as it was, but renewed. The horizon is broader now, richer in color. The sky holds constellations that did not exist moments ago, each star a pinprick of potential drawn from choices newly made. The ship is waiting for her not where she left it, but where it needed to be. It floats on a current that was not there before, held aloft by nothing but possibility. She steps onto the deck. The crew once more gathered in quiet reverence nod as she passes, not with recognition of authority, but with the acknowledgement due someone who has seen, what they have not, who has touched what they only dream about in their stillness. Their movements still carry the echo of the old rhythms, but now those rhythms pulse with hope. They are no longer sleepwalkers bound to cursed repetition. They are participants willing now to change. The figurehead has changed again. Where once there was a blindfolded sentinel, there is now a face open to the wind. The carved eyes stare not out at the sea, but up toward the sky. The mouth once sealed in silence is parted slightly, as if forever beginning to speak. The wood gleams with salt, but also with something else, something polished into it by time and transformation. She passes beneath it. The lantern is gone from her hand, not lost, given. It has become part of the ship, integrated into the foremast itself, its glow subtly pulsing from within the wood, like a heart beating at the center of a great body. This ship is no longer just a vessel cursed to sail without end. It is something more, a bearer of light, a keeper of stories, a cathedral made of wind and salt and choice. The girl walks to the center of the deck and raises her hands. She says nothing, but she offers, and the ship accepts, with a groan that begins in the lowest timbers and climbs up the masts like a spine stretching after centuries of slumber. The Dutchman begins to change its course. It turns not away from the horizon, but toward it, embracing the mystery that awaits. The sails swell, the ropes tighten. The crew moves not because they must, but because they want to. There is energy in every motion, a kind of eagerness held tightly within restraint. The ship is ready, and beneath the waves the sea answers. No longer a force to be feared, it rises gently in support, lifting the hull with reverent care. The old currents give way to new ones not born of storms or grief, but of momentum, of purpose, of story continuing. You feel it too. As the Dutchman sails forward, you are in every breath of wind that brushes the girl's face. You are in the shadow that stretches from the sails. You are in the curve of the waves as they part before the prow. You are not watching. You are within. This story has no end, but it does have new chapters, and you will help write them. The sea stretches onward now, vast and calm, no longer threatening in its endlessness, no longer haunted by the echoes of broken vows or half-finished prayers. It has transformed not entirely, not permanently, but enough that its surface seems to shimmer with a new kind of possibility. The Dutchman glides upon it with a grace it has not known in centuries, each creak of its planks now softened into harmony with the wind, each rope and beam holding steady, not through fear or force, but through choice. This ship, once burdened by story, is now buoyed by it. The girl stands at the helm. There is no captain here, not anymore. Not in the traditional sense. The wheel rests within reach, but she does not touch it. She does not need to. The ship knows where to go. It follows not a map, but a calling, something that hums in the lines of its hull and the pulse of the tide. And the girl listens. Not to orders, not to charts or stars, but to the subtle murmur of everything beneath her feet, the whisper of plank, to plank the breath of sails catching dreams instead of wind, the slow exhale of the ocean remembering how to sing. Around her, the crew has changed, not in form, but in posture, in energy, in attention. No longer trapped in their patterns, they move as if waking from a long, salt-soaked sleep. Some laugh softly, a strange, uncertain sound after so long in silence. Others begin to fix things long left undone, retying knots, straightening sails, repairing nets and railing. But not because they have been ordered to. They move because they want to, because they have remembered how to move with intent, how to build not for survival, but for continuation. Even the ghosts seem lighter now, flickering around the edges of the ship, like candle flames dancing in morning light, less like tormented echoes, and more like guardians fading into story. You are still there, not in a single place. Not in the timbers or the lantern or the salt still embedded in the ship's railings. You are woven into all of it, into the girl's breath, into the wind that lifts the sailcloth, into the silence that no longer feels oppressive. You are the unseen thread that holds everything together. Not the origin, not the conclusion, the through line, the breath between lines of verse. And in this new breath, the ship sees something on the horizon. It is not land, not yet, but it is shape. A curve where the water meets sky. A shift in color, in density, in suggestion. The Dutchman, for the first time in countless seasons, has somewhere to go. The girl lowers her gaze to the deck for a moment, watching the crew as they move. She is not surprised by what she sees. It feels natural to her now, inevitable even. The ship has become more than cursed wood and wandering purpose. It has become a vessel for memory, for continuation, for passage. And as she places one hand gently upon the wheel, not to turn it, but to anchor herself, the lantern within the foremast pulses again. That glow is no longer just hers. It belongs to the ship. It belongs to all who walked before her, and it belongs to all who will walk after. The horizon grows closer, and as it does, the sky begins to change. Not in violence, not in storm. The clouds remain high and slow, dappled with hints of color, not found in any mortal dawn. There is pink here, yes, but also a green that does not belong to leaf or moss, a blue that sings like a lullaby made visible. It is not light as the world knows it. It is threshold light, the glow that precedes something sacred. A light that says, this is not the end. This is the point at which things become more. The ship slows not in reluctance, but in respect. At the prow, the water parts again. Not wide, not loud, but with a grace that suggests understanding. Beneath the waves, something glimmers. Not treasure, not wreckage. Something softer. You recognize it before she does. Lanterns, dozens, hundreds, perhaps more. Each one resting at the ocean's floor, nestled among the silt and the song of time. Some are intact, some are cracked, some have long gone dark, while others pulse faintly with a stubborn, ghostly glow. These are the lights carried by those who never made it this far. Bearers who walked and were lost to fog, to fear, to fatigue, but they are not forgotten. She kneels, the girl lanternless now in body, but radiant still in spirit, presses a palm to the deck. And from that point, a pulse of light spreads outward. It moves across the wood, through the nails, down the masts, and into the hull. It travels into the sea. The lanterns respond, not by rising, by flickering. One by one, like fireflies blinking through old dreams, the lights ignite, not with fire but with memory. And in each one, a glimpse, a face, a hand, a moment, a bearer, a journey, a reason. They do not beg to be lifted. They do not ask to be carried. They are content in their place at the bottom of the world so long as they are seen. And now they are. The girl rises, and the ship moves forward again. The water beneath it is no longer deep with silence. It is filled with chorus, quiet, yes, but resonant. As the Dutchman glides, it becomes not a shadow on the sea, but a reflection of everything carried in secret. It becomes the flame moving forward through darkness, not burning, not fading, simply enduring, simply. And then at last the horizon breaks, not into land, into light, brilliant, soft, impossibly wide. The sea does not end. It transforms. The waves remain, but now they move like breath, like thought, like lullabies whispered across generations. The sky opens into color, and in that opening, the ship becomes something more. It becomes story. The girl places her hand once more upon the rail, and she smiles, not because she has reached the end, but because she knows someone else is watching now, someone ready to take the next step, someone already holding the shape of a lantern in their dreams. She does not need to see them. She knows they are there. She knows because she was once that someone too. And because of that, she walks forward, not because she must, because the flame still moves, because the sea still waits, because the story still breathes. The ship sails onward, and as it does, the sea softens, not in the way of tides ebbing toward slumber, but in the way a mother's breath slows once her child has drifted to sleep. The sky, now bathed in a warmth that cannot be traced to any rising sun, holds still with quiet approval. The stars blink slowly above, not fading, but resting their light diffused through the gentle haze that follows a long journey. Around the ship, the water glimmers in hues. No chart could name colors borrowed from memories too private to speak aloud. Shades pulled from moments of quiet joy and lingering sorrow. On the deck, all is calm. The crew moves in rhythm with the ship's breathing, each step deliberate, but no longer heavy. The wind that brushes past the girl's hair is no longer insistent, no longer biting or bold. It is simply present, cool, and constant, like the hush of a song's final chord. Below, the sea still glows with the soft flicker of lanterns long gone quiet. They do not ask to be found. They are content now simply to be remembered. And above, in the lantern socket, where once you stood, the glow remains not bright, not loud, but steady. Enough to light a path, enough to guide the next. You have walked far. You have carried the light through darkness that seemed unending. Now the weight is not yours. Now the sea sings gently beneath you. Now the ship continues on, not cursed, not lost, but luminous. So close your eyes. Let the waves hold you. Let the story drift onward without worry. The flame still moves, and you are part of it.